Hi guys, it's Kelly here and I'm back with another video. Today's video is featuring some products from My Favorite Things. This is one of their newer stamp sets. It's called Helping Hands, and then per usual, gotta use the stencils, the clouds, and the grass. So we're going to be doing a one layer card today. It's all masked. But we're going to be talking about some Distress ink color combinations. Before we get too far along in the video, just in case you happen to be catching this, I know I'm posting it later in the day. This set is actually on sale for their Wednesday Blitz Day. And so currently the stamp set that I'm using is $9.59 and the coordinating dies are $12.59. So pretty good deal. Plus, if you watched my video from last week where I used the Elegant Stacks, those are fantastic and they're on sale for less than 20 bucks, which is pretty unheard of for, stacking dies like that. But also, once the Blitz Deal day is done, they are then continuing a 10% off sale, which is site-wide, no code needed, through the 14th. So they've got some pretty good things going on over there, if you're interested in checking those things out. So here I have stamped this down and I'm stamping in ink that is safe for alcohol markers because I will be coloring with my Copics. And so we're just going to build this up. If you're not familiar with one layer cards, then you must be new to my channel. Here, this is funny. I couldn't get it lined up because I was using such a small piece of masking tape that finally I just stuck my masking tape to my stamp and then flipped the door to stick it down to my paper because I could not get it where I wanted it to go. But so when you're doing scene cards, you want to stamp whatever you want in the front first. So whatever you want to see all of, you want to stamp that first and then mask it and then stamp your layers behind, which doesn't really apply to the bunny and the truck in the front, but these situations in the back here, like I wanted the apple basket to be in front of my bunny and in front of my ladder. So I needed to stamp the apple basket first, mask it, and then stamp my bunnies, mask them, and then stamp my tree. My tree is my final layer. It's the furthest layer and has the most items in front of it. So that is why it gets stamped last. What you see the least of gets stamped last. That's a really easy way to remember it. And so I know not everybody is a huge fan of one layer cards or fussy cutting, which obviously fussy cutting is required to do these little masks. However, if masks are not your favorite thing to create, you could certainly rebuild this entire scene with the coordinating dies, or if you have a Brother Scan and Cut, that would also work. So now let's talk about some distressing combos. I really wanted to do something different. You guys, if you've been watching my last couple of videos, you know that I have really been loving the dried marigold, seedless preserves, and picked raspberry combination. And so I wanted to do something that was a little bit more fall and a little bit more interesting, but I didn't really know what I wanted to do. So I pulled out a couple of colors that I thought would work really well together, and then I just started playing around with scrap cardstock. This particular piece of cardstock was already kind of like the corner was bent. It was a little wonky. So rather than throw it away, I just used it to do some swatches. This first one that I'm doing is Crackling Campfire, Dried Marigold, and Saltwater Taffy. And don't worry, once we get through all of the combinations, I will have them all on the screen labeled where you can pause it and write that down if you are interested in kind of recreating it. But I knew that I wanted kind of like a fall-ish sky. And so that's how I kind of picked the colors that I picked. So a little bit of yellow, a lot of like pinky oranges, some pinks, obviously, with the saltwater taffy. And then I think the Crackling Campfire, I think, is my darkest color. But even then, it's not super dark. And the same thing with the Abandoned Coral. They were kind of like on the dark side of midtones. all of them blended really well together. All of the combinations that I put together did blend very nicely. And I'm just using the traditional, like the Ranger foam blenders. But I'm sure these would even blend nicer with brushes. So just, whatever you have or whatever colors you have. Or if you're like, hey, I really like this color combination, but I think maybe it would look better with fill in the blank, try it. Just try it with some scrap paper. So this second one I did was saltwater taffy, dried marigold, and scattered straw. And I really liked this one quite a bit. So that one was like kind of in the running. And then the next one is abandoned coral, saltwater taffy, and scattered straw. And you may be thinking to yourself, like, scattered straw and saltwater taffy are kind of meh away from each other. But to get a good blend, I always do mine twice. So I do one layer of color and then go back through and do a second layer of color in reverse. So in this case, I did abandoned coral, salted, Lord. There's no blue in here, Kelly. I know, aren't you shocked? Abandoned coral, saltwater taffy, and scattered straw. And then in reverse, I did them scattered straw, saltwater taffy, abandoned coral. And I find that this approach of doing it 2 times really does give me a solid blend with almost all the colors. So in some cases, like in this one here, the abandoned coral seemed a little bit strong, and so I did blend it out one last time with the saltwater taffy, but I didn't pick up any extra color. I just used what was left on my foam. This last one is going to be the crackling campfire, abandoned coral, and picked raspberry. So a little bit more on the pink side, which I am kind of a big fan of, but I think it was just a smidge too dark for the look I was going for today. But I will definitely keep it in mind for in the future, because I was a big fan of it. It's very bold. And you guys know I like me some bold color, even though today's card probably would not lead you to believe that, because it is a smidge more muted. So now all of them are done and blended out, and like I said, I will, well, here I'm trying to find my pick raspberry so I can finally blend that last one out, but then I will put them all on the screen. They will have all of the names, next to them. Please feel free to pause it, write this down, whatever you need to do if you see something that you're a fan of. I liked the abandoned coral, saltwater taffy, and scattered straw, and as well as the saltwater taffy, dried marigold, and scattered straw. And so I just decided to combine the two and ended up using a 4-color blend for my sky. This is the Clouds stencil. And I'm going to use this to just kind of give me a little bit of a buffer, like a white section between the green grass and the orangish, pinkish, reddish sky. And actually, I think it's very interesting to see that the card ends up almost being completely red and green. And normally I only use that for Christmas, but surprisingly, I am a fan of this. I did have to stifle the urge when I was done to spatter on some perfect pearls, but it just really didn't make sense for the scene. And so I just suppressed that urge, and I'm sure I will use perfect pearls in ad nauseum in another card. So here, again, just doing the same thing that I did before. The only difference is here, I did layer all of the colors together. So in the swatches, I just kind of did them section by section. Here, I completely covered the card with each of the colors. Here, I accidentally moved my stencil, and I'm not even sure how I did it, because once I did it, I couldn't move it back without having to take my magnets off. But anywho, so blending those out, and then, I was really happy with the way that it came out. I think that it is a lot different than what I would normally do, but I definitely feel like it's an autumn sky-ish look, which is what I was going for. And now I'm just going to add some interest to that since I couldn't use the perfect pearls. I'm just going to kind of move my stencil up, turning it as I go to create layers of clouds. It will be very subtle. It's certainly not going to be any kind of in your face look. But I think it's enough to add some interest. So, do I have a story time? I guess I do. I did that. You guys probably saw. I shared it on my community page. I did that all to new live today. It was just kind of like a question and answer thing for the retreat, and you'll have to let me know if you caught it. It was fun. It was like it basically was just pretty much just sitting there chatting, though I did have to devote a small portion of my morning to actually doing my hair and makeup, which is very different for me normally than what I normally do. So for the grass part, normally I go with really bright greens, but I felt like because my sky was a bit more subdued, my grasses needed to match. And so I used scattered straw, bundled sage, and I showed you rustic wilderness because I did use it, but I actually didn't pick up any more ink. I only used what was left on my foam. Since it's a well-seasoned foam pad, it still has quite a bit of ink on it, and I just needed enough to add in a little bit of a shadow. So I'm not using my magnets yet because I need to be able to bring in color from the top edge down, just because of the way my stencil is situated. I didn't want to bend it or peel it up. And then once that's done, I'll be able to just, come in from the sides like I would normally do. I'm adding a little bit of bundled sage here in the middle to try to add a shadow, but ultimately I'm going to flip the stencil around and add more shading later on. I was really just kind of trying to see if I could cheat, and I could not. So now I'm going to flip the grasses to a smaller one, and I'm going to put that in place so that I can ink another layer of grass so it's very clear that the apple pickers are up on the top of the hill and the apple carrier, the apple bringer to the truck, what do you want to call him? I'm not sure. That he is on the flat ground with the pickup truck. Speaking of the pickup truck, I originally pulled out on solid ground to use it, but I did double check before I started my video, and they are still out of stock. It's a great set. Great set. And it would have been great to have the little road for the truck to be on. I also could have drawn it in. I chose not to. So here's where I'm going to flip the grasses around just so I can add more of a shadow behind the front grasses, which is going to give me more dimension than what I currently have with these kind of lighter colors. So again, using that rustic wilderness, just what's left on my foam pad, and then I'll blend that out with the bundled sage. And then the scattered straw, it really wasn't even necessary because I was just adding a shadow. And then now that that's done, we're going to go in and one of my favorite parts of a one layer card, remove the masks. So once I remove the masks, you can see all of those images stayed white. And then we will move on to the Copic coloring. It's kind of a longer video because we got a lot of things going on here. Oh, I forgot I stamped the apples. So this tree very much reminds me of like when we were young and like the trees you draw kind of as a little kid. And so I thought it would be cute since they are apple picking to take the apple that's in the set and kind of stamp a bunch of them on the tree. I thought it would be kind of cute and whimsical. You obviously don't have to do that, but I thought that it was really adorable. Speaking of really adorable, the sentiments in this set, I used one that made sense with the card, but the one I really love, it didn't fit on my card or I would have used it, is I love you a bushel and a peck. I think that is adorable. Like, stop it. It's so cute. But anyway, they do have some other really good ones. There's one for like a birthday and then a thanks and the friendship one is the one that I picked. For the tree, because it is just this large, kind of very simply shaped tree, in order to add some texture and some interest to it, I added some shading around the like edges, but then I went in and I did some stippling to create the look of multicolored leaves. They're all green, but that way there's different tones and stuff in there to just make it look a little bit more interesting. And I did concentrate some of the darker dots around the edges, but I tried to keep the middle pretty mixed up with the different levels of green so that it would just be easy to look at. Oh, so the live, that's what we were talking about. So it was kind of nice because it was just kind of like having a little conversation. But I did have to get ready for it. And that means that this is the second time this week that I have had to do my hair and makeup. And I'm totally out of practice because I work from home. And the only time I ever leave is to take my kids to where they're going, or possibly hit the gas station. Though I didn't even have to do that. You know what's so nice? It is so nice when your significant other surprises you in ways that you don't even expect. Back to the card. So here I'm just adding in some little flicks of color. I'm filling in that part on the ladder. And I did have to revisit that a couple of times with a few different colors in order to get it to blend in a way that I was happy with it. So I apologize for not showing you this marker. This is a G43, and you can tell by the number that it's a little less saturated. You know, the 43 is not going to be as bright. And because these are, you know, some duller, less saturated, desaturated colors, I did have to go over it with a couple of different colors. The yellow I used was a Y13, which is a little bit more, a little bit softer. And then I added some shadows underneath my characters and all the rest of the images. And then I'm going to do the same thing with the flicking of the grasses to the bottom portion as well, just to give it some texture and, again, some added interest. So, your significant other surprising you. I don't really, I mean, my vehicle is my vehicle, my husband's vehicle is his vehicle. We don't typically interchange vehicles. Now that he has, you know, a car that he brings home that's the department's, that's typically what he drives. So he doesn't drive his personal vehicle a lot. So every once in a while he'll take my car if he's like picking up the kids, because it's easier. I already have the car seat in there and all that, and we don't have to like dig his truck out of the back of the driveway. And so this morning I was rushing, but I didn't notice. But then today, when I went to go pick up Caitlin, I did notice my gas tank was full. It was full. I didn't leave it full. I never leave it full. Who are we kidding? You know, have you ever seen that meme? Like, there's two people in a marriage, and one of them gets gas at half a tank, and the other one's just out here running on fumes. I'm the second one. Just so we're clear, I'm running on fumes. In life, on my gas tank, on sleep, I run the gamut on fumes. And my husband is not. He much prefers to be prepared and not stranded on the side of the road because he's run out of gas. So I think I was down to like a quarter of a tank, and he filled my gas tank. Isn't that nice? Like, so unexpectedly surprising and just very nice, and I appreciate it. So yeah, there's that. The other thing we talked about in the live, again, you'll have to let me know if you caught it. I think it was a little bit hard for some people to find because they did it on Facebook and YouTube, but it took a while for the replay to get up. So if you were looking for it before and you didn't find it, you may want to look again. In the interview, I guess that's what it was. It was a Q&A, so I guess that's an interview. In the interview, they asked me, Bridget, who was the host, asked me if I had story time planned for retreat. And I had to break it to Bridget, as well as everybody else who was present, that I never plan story time. Like, I may try to log away a couple of things like that maybe that are interesting that happened during the week. I may try to like squirrel them away and be like, oh, that'd be a good story time. Remember that. But oftentimes I forget them, and I almost never have a game plan when I sit down, because if I do have a game plan when I sit down, I never end up getting to tell that story. Because like I had no intention of telling you that my husband filled my gas tank today, but that is what I told you, isn't it? Yes, it is. So like I've learned to just kind of embrace the chaos, and whatever story gets told gets told. And that's okay. Like, we just roll with it. We're very adaptable here. We roll with the mistakes in our cards. We fix it if it needs fixing. And with story time, whatever comes out when I open my mouth is what the story you get. And I'm okay with all of those things. So for the coloring here, I went through and did the apples. Relatively simple, just 3 colors. Same thing with the like the wood portion of things. I just colored them all the same brown. I guess because I didn't feel like there was a need to switch it up. With the bunnies, I will though, because I didn't want them to all be exactly the same. So I did switch up their color just a little bit, but I left them on the much lighter side. So I will have 2 cool gray bunnies and 1 warm gray bunny. And I can honestly say that I think I prefer the warm gray bunny, even though there's only one of them, just because this card is a little bit on the warmer side with that sky. So I think that's why I prefer that bunny. But I did keep them all pretty light. Again, just a 3 color blend. And for every bunny, I left some portion of them completely white, where I had cardstock that I did not color, that I really just added in the shadows with these grays, and then I'll give them a little pink cheek, pink ear, and pink belly with some Copic markers that match fairly close to the colors in the sky. So yeah, the lives, I do enjoy them. I don't know if I enjoy so much the showing of my face, because it is time consuming for me to get my face into into some kind of shape that I'm willing to share it, if that makes sense. I apologize. I am losing my voice again. I don't know why. I think it's tied to the allergies. Like, maybe do I have some post-nasal drip that I'm always feeling like I need to clear my throat? I don't know. I don't remember that being an issue until the last couple of months, and I have to tell you, it's driving me a little batty. I don't like it. It oftentimes makes me have to pause and restart a voiceover, which you guys all know I abhor doing. I prefer to do it in one long take and just be done with it. But the allergies oftentimes, because I do feel like I need to clear my throat or my voice gets really raspy, I have to pause it. And so now I've just taken to clearing my throat in your ear, because I don't want to be inconvenienced by having to pause my own voiceover, to be quite honest. So I apologize if listening to me clear my throat bothers you, but it's a necessary evil. So now we've added all the pinks, and for the truck, my initial go-to was like, the little red truck, which I think I probably would have been okay with if I didn't already have so much kind of orangish red in the sky, and then the apples, and I didn't want everything to be all one color. And so I made a jump. What do they call that? A triad? A triad? I think that's what it's called. When you're at the color wheel. So I think it's that. I think that's what it is. When you're at a color, let's say red, its complement is green. So But the triad is if you go from red and then instead of going in a straight line to green, you go in a Y and you go in the two colors next to it, which for me, which for red, the triad is a yellow green and a blue green. It's the greens that sit on either side of green. And so that's how I picked the color of my truck, because I knew it would kind of play well with what I already had going on here. There's so much more. Like, I would love to tell you guys about color theory, but I try to do it in little snippets. But I'm fairly sure that it's called a triad, though I will definitely have to look it up and double check, and then, you know, I'll fix it in the next video if I'm wrong, but I think that's what it is. So here, the colors that I chose, it goes out to a B40 or a BG49, which is dark, but it's not as dark as I wanted it. And when I'm looking for a darker color for the BG families, I typically jump over to the B99, and that's what I use today as well. It takes on a teal look once you go over it with the 49, and so I was happy with that. I did use my lightest color, that BG11, to also color in my window. I'll come back here in a little bit with those same greens for my grasses. Oh, there I am now. And just do a couple of like stripes in the window, so it still looks like a reflective surface, but it also still looks like you can see through it. And then the wheels, I kept it pretty simple with some light grays for the hubcaps and some dark grays and a little bit of black for the tires. This one was super kind of, I just breezed through the coloring on this one. It felt like, I know we've been here for over 20 minutes, so maybe you didn't feel like I breezed through it, but I did. I was surprised that it didn't take longer to color it. But yeah, so the live was fun. It was fun to kind of chat, but I don't necessarily know that I will be, several of you were like, oh, it's so nice to see your face and put a face with a voice. And I can appreciate that. But I don't, if I do lives for my own channel, I can't promise that you'll see much of my face, because it does require two different equipments. That doesn't even make any sense. Two different applications. Like, you have to log into the app 2 different ways. So in order to see my face, I use my laptop, and in order to see my desktop, I use my phone with an Archon stand. And so I'm not sure that that's something that I will do in the future, that you can see both. You may just get my desktop, just to be transparent. So here, the sentiment that I chose says, I couldn't have picked a better friend. Isn't that cute? I think it is, because we're picking apples. And we actually have an apple orchard super close to us that you could pay to go in, and they'll give you a basket, and you can go pick your own apples, which is adorable. They have a lot of other stuff too there. So once I stamped my sentiment, I did go in and put some highlights on my little apples, in all the forms, not just on the tree, but also in the baskets. I put some highlights on the truck and the window to the truck as well. And then, of course, you guys know I have to add the shimmers, because that makes me happy. And I shimmered, well, pretty much everything, to be honest. I shimmered the apples. I shimmered the truck. And this is just a clear glitter pen. This one's the Nuvo, I think, but you could use the Zig as well, and it would be fine. And then that's it. That's the whole card. So please let me know what you think about the Distress ink color combinations. Also, check out that sale. It's done on the 14th for the 10%. And that's it. I appreciate your guys' time so much. Thank you for spending it with me, and I'll catch you on the next video. Bye.